Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kelvin Kuria, Kelvin Kuria Kimani, KKK. I work for Unilever today. I sell soap for a living. I'll tell you about it for a while. But before I do, I came with my colleague of mine. His name is Velaris. So I'd just like Velaris to say hello. He's a very nice, very well-dressed young gentleman, correct?
My name is Velaris Omariba, and Kelvin and I both sell soap for a living. Maybe he will expound more on that. But what do I do for a living? Again, I've mentioned, but at what level? Currently, I'm a BDM. BDM means Business Development Manager. I oversee quite a number of distributors for Unilever International. So it's like different. There's some difference between Unilever Kenya and Unilever International. So we both work for Unilever International. So basically, we do more of imports, brands that Unilever Kenya is not doing locally. That's the business that we do. But currently, I handle a number of distributors, and over and above, I handle the modern trade business for Unilever International. So modern trade business means the Naivases of this world, Carrefour, Chandrana, and Quickmart. Yeah? Thank you.
In short, I'm too busy.
I forgot something. So maybe to surprise you, Kelvin is my boss, yeah? So I report into Kelvin, yeah? So I'm here with Kelvin, who is my boss. Thank you. Thank you, Kelvin.
That is a man who knows the side of his bread that is buttered. I'm like, in all of this introduction, you're not going to mention my relationship. You say that kidogo, Anyway, so Velaris and I work together. And I invited him just so that, we can sort of have a conversation with you about what, not. This is not a Unilever presentation, so I'll not sell soap to you. I promise. But if you do happen to end up buying soap from this conversation, that would be really nice. Rent inexpensive is not cheap. Rent in Nairobi is not cheap. I have 25 minutes, I've been told, and there's a lot we could do. There is really a lot we could do, and there's a lot about, we could have a big conversation. But first, let me say, it was really nice listening to you, Rachel. It's very nice to meet you. I've followed you on Twitter already. I hope we can get to talk. And well, I honestly believe that the story you shared is unbelievably powerful because it's absolutely personal to you. And I think the point that you made earlier, Vincent, on personalizing our stories and then making sure that people are able to then take lessons from that actually makes a lot of sense, right? And I could go on and on, but what do I want to do? This presentation was not made for today. I actually came in and I saw a computer screen and I was like, and I have my laptop with me. And I remember Steve actually invited me to go speak at an event in Strathmore University. And they told me to do slides, and I did slides, and these are the slides. But when I showed up to that event, the computer didn't work. So these slides have never been used. So I came here and I figured I might as well, no? Is this Potela? Yeah. So, and I figured the work we do at Unilever International is a bit of a complicated piece of work. So I'll use these slides to explain to you what we do at UI. Because I think it's important, and there's a bit of a business development element to it. But what I really like to do in about 15 minutes is have an honest conversation with you about yourself. I hope and I'd like to get to know you a bit more. And I'd like us to talk about what it means to be a university student and the opportunities that you currently are sitting on. You probably know about them already. You probably most of you probably don't even know about the opportunities you're sitting on. And how, in my view, and giving you my own personal story, how you could then take those opportunities for yourself and really make your life in university not just another life where you go to school and then go to class and then blah, 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 and then you finish and graduate and then you start sending us CVs to look for jobs. How you could really use this as a transformative experience for yourself. Does that sound like a good plan? How to spend 25 minutes? Then you can go into Q&A and Rachel and I will have a conversation with all of you once sort of again. Make sense? Good. Okay. But first, who am I talking to? So what do you guys do? Who are you? Are you in campus? No, you're in campus, but what do you study? Come on. IR is international relations. Okay, first years in the house, second years, third years, fourth years. The rest of you? The rest of you are sending CVs. Okay. So what courses are you doing? So IR, I had finance. What else? IT. Say again? Say that again? Criminal justice. Jesus Christ. What else? Yeah? What's IBA? International Business Administration. Okay, perfect. Cool. Psychology. Fantastic. So, wow. Okay. So basically, people who are smarter than I am. That's all I'm hearing. I love it. Good stuff. Okay. But a little about myself. My name is Kelvin. I look after the business development function for Unilever International in East Africa. And East Africa is pretty much 7 countries. So Ethiopia, Djibouti, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, a few other countries. I'm based out of Nairobi, but I travel quite a bit for work. So I'm in Kenya at least, for 2 weeks, and then maybe another 2 weeks somewhere within the East Africa region specifically. So Kampala, Dar es Salaam, Addis, Djibouti, Somaliland. Hargeisa is probably, we look after business in Somaliland. Can you imagine? We sell soap in Somaliland. I'll talk to you about the business model. And the reason I'll talk to you about the business model is just so that you can start to appreciate. And I think this is important. So you can start to appreciate what I think, in my view, is how to look at opportunities where the opportunities do not really exist, right? Some of you are doing IBA, finance. It doesn't matter what it is that you do, but there's a business element to everything it is that you do, correct? Make sense? Cool. So let me tell you how Unilever has done it, and hopefully you can take a lesson there. Next. Okay. So, the population in the world has been growing over the last 10, 15 years. Population in the world has blossomed, and it is said that in the next sort of 2 to 3, by 2060, the population of the world is going to have doubled, which is unbelievable, right? And that comes with a lot of opportunity if you think about it. So we work in FMCG and fast-moving consumer goods, and in the industry that we do, that when we see people, we see opportunity, because it means that all those people have to shower and eat and drink and and because of that, urbanization has also really grown. What that has done is that markets are growing, incomes are growing. I know right now we have inflation, but if you just look at it over a 10-year spread, there has been a lot of advancement in economies and a lot of advancement in population, which brings opportunity in itself from a development perspective. So the world is not poor of opportunity. There is a lot of opportunity in everything, in every single industry that you look at. There's a lot of opportunity. Next point, then, next slide, is sorry. These slides were better looking than they are now. But what that does, so there's a lot of globalization, which is a part of what Rachel was talking about, which is today it's possible to sit here and work for somebody you've never met. It is possible to sit here and work for a company that is domiciled in a region you've never been to, right? So there's a lot of opportunity so globalization is a thing. You understand what globalization is, right? And what globalization has done is that from a fragmentation perspective, there is a lot of fragmentation that has happened in terms of consumer and customer spaces. Let me explain what fragmentation is. Fragmentation is 10 years ago, or 8 years ago when I joined Unilever, we used to look at consumers as an East African consumer, and we would come and talk to you. And East Africa has 250 million people that live here. If you add Ethiopia now, about 300 million people that live in the region. And that's 300 million different people. You just can't go and talk to them as, you can't, there's no such thing as an East African consumer. Because if you look at a Kenyan consumer and an Ethiopian consumer and a Djiboutian consumer, those are 3 different people, right? The way they dress, the way they eat, their religious beliefs, their views on everything is different, right? And that fragmentation therefore means that you just can't go and put up an ad for Dove and expect that you're going to talk to 300 million people and it works. You just can't go and put up a social media post about Lifebuoy as a soap and expect that you're going to talk to, you're going to get consumers. You have to do a lot more work now. You have to be a lot more detailed. We call it de-averaging in Unilever, which is you then have to take your 300 million people and you then have to then start looking at them as different people. right? Different segments of the population. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm giving a business lecture, so I'll move quicker. What that has done, though, is that we now need what you call two different business models. And I'll get to why this is important from a business modeling perspective, which is you have a mainstream consumer who is your Sunlight, your Omo. I am having this conversation hoping that you know of our Unilever brands, right? So we make Sunlight and Omo, which are mainstream brands, right? Ideally, 80-90% of the population should be using that, right? But then we also make brands like Dove. We know stuff like Dove Roll-On, which is very specific. Yeah, not everybody should. We use Dove soap, Dove shower gel, for example, which are very, very specific elements of the market. And what that did is, it then required us to come up with a business model that says we need to serve people who are underserved to make a difference, hence Unilever International. So Unilever International is a business unit that is set up in Unilever to look after that section of the population that the Unilever business does not look after. And so we are business people. What we do is that we go in and we look at opportunities, and we take those opportunities and we put a business model behind them. So we find the product wherever it is. We source it from Unilever in China or Dubai or wherever. We give it to a distributor, and we get the distributor to sell the product to the market, right? The question is, how did I personally, as Kelvin, get here? Yeah. So that's the end of what I do for a living, and the Unilever part of it. Oh, I think there's two or more slides which you might find interesting if you keep going. So these I told you about countries we look after. So this is a portfolio of brands that we look after, right? So if you look at stuff like Dove, we look after Vaseline, Tresemme. So how many of you have heard of a brand called Redox? That's us. St. Ives? That's us. Tresemme? That's us. What else? Rexona? Sheer Moisture? Sheer Moisture as well. Nice. That's us. What else? Dove? That's us. Keep going. In F&R, there's a brand called Hellmann's. Have you heard of Hellmann's? It's a ketchup. Ketchup, is a mayonnaise in there as well. That's us. Have you heard of Robertson's? Robertson's, it's a spice. It's like a tropical heat, but expensive. That's us. Knorr soups, you know Knorr? Knorr the brand? That's us. Horlicks? Horlicks was really good back in the day, right? So Horlicks is back. We're struggling with it, if I'm honest, but Horlicks is us as well. It's actually in stock. What else? Magnum ice cream? Sif? Domestos? Omo, Sunlight, Comfort. Anyway, so this is what we do, right, in different categories, right? And you will see that you'll not see your Roycos and your normal Sunlights and your Omos, because that's what Unilever Kenya does, right? We're still part of Unilever. We just have business people that look after opportunities at Unilever. Things are either too small or too complicated to look after, yeah? But let me tell you how I got here in another, I think, 10 minutes, maybe. I went to school I did Bachelor of Commerce, which is why some of the degrees you guys are doing are very complicated. Mimi nilifanya Bachelor of Comfort pale Kenyatta University. I was in school between 2010 and 2014. I'd just like to spend some time talking to you about my university experience, because I still think, looking back, that was probably the best time of my life at the time, right? Because I joined KU. I came in from. I grew up in the village in a place called Subukia, and I joined KU as a first-year student, green-eyed. Came to Nairobi the first time when I came to university. How many of you? Similar story? Just me and you. We should start a WhatsApp group. Or from another country. So you flew into Nairobi. I matatued into Nairobi. But one of the things that I was very clear about is, deep down, I'm a business person. I love taking stuff from X and adding it, getting it to Y, and sort of in the middle, adding value, right? And this is something even in high school, I used to be the guy who was selling mandazis and pens and full scarves and all that. That was me, right? And so when I came to campus, I was mind blown by the number of people that were in Kenyatta University. At the time, there were 70,000 of us here down the road. And I was a job student at the time. And I was mind blown by 70,000 people in the same compound. Do you know how much opportunity that is? So fast forward is I joined these clubs and associations. So I joined Accounting Students Association. I even got a small role there as a leadership person. I joined ISEC. Is ISEC still there? So I am still an ISEC. So I joined ISEC, and I was I was in the leadership committee of ISEC, and I was in the leadership committee of Accounting Students Association. And because I've always been a very ambitious, very aggressive person. In about a year, I sort of had figured out what the opportunities are. And the biggest opportunity I figured is that there were corporate organizations like ACCA of this world, the Unilevers of this world, that were struggling to cut into campus. And the reason why they were struggling is because no one could go up to them and give them a solution that then says, this is university students. This is how you talk to the students so that you can be able to get them to buy whatever you're selling. ACCA, for example, was struggling to get students to study ACCA, right? And so we used to do proposals to ACCA to then talk to them about how they can get into the student market. And what made ACCA listen to us is not because we were brilliant or they listened to us because we were students. Our selling point was that we are students, that we understand what students want, and it therefore makes sense for you to give us the work to go and talk to our fellow students. It's a very simple speech, right? And we made a lot of money. I was just telling Velaris here, when Rachel was talking about applying for jobs, I'm like, I don't know what that is. And the reason for that is because we had so much opportunity, we had so much work. Unilever, how I work for Unilever today is that Unilever was our client. And they were doing an employer branding campaign. And this is me at second year, right? So what is the first point? If you forget everything, I'm saying here today, please remember one thing, right? Which is, as a student, and which is why I love talking to students, is the one biggest advantage and opportunity you have for yourself is that you are a student. And quite honestly, no one takes you seriously until you take yourself seriously, right? And so if you snap out of this thinking mentality that I'm a student, and therefore I can only do student quality stuff, yeah? And therefore I can only live a student lifestyle. And therefore, you sort of are always living in the constant expectation that one day you will start living life, because now all you're doing is going through school so that you can go get yourself a good job, and then hopefully then you will be able to start living life. First of all, let me just be honest. Life will never be better for you than it is today, because and I know you know that already. You don't have a lot of responsibility. You don't have a lot of financial responsibility. You don't have targets and bosses to deal with, and therefore you could be whatever it is that you wanna be. And so when I talk to students, I tell them one thing, which is, please find out what you're passionate about. It doesn't have to be, we were passionate, we used to love wearing suits and walking into offices and talking to them about, big English and giving them presentations. Because quite honestly, that used to fascinate me, because I come from a village. So that stuff was exciting for me. It doesn't have to be for you, whatever that is, whatever you're passionate about, take it seriously and do it well. I don't know if that makes sense. Music, art, I don't know, organizing people, fun, games, sport especially. Please take that stuff seriously. Does that make sense? And so find out what you're passionate about, which is really my first and most important point. And then the second point is almost as important, which is I found out what I was passionate about. I was passionate about networking. I was passionate about bringing people together. I still am. I love hosting to date. That's the first point. The second point is, once you find out what that is for you, then quit playing around and get to work. And by get to work is start something. Because in my view and in my experience, No one has ever gained any experience by thinking about doing something. No one has ever gained any experience by wanting to do something. No one has ever gained any experience by talking about doing something. No one has ever gained experience about writing about doing something. The only person that gained experience is the person that actually did something. So get off the couch, get off your room, and if it is sport, go to the field or whatever and just start getting busy. Because then in the process of that experience, then you then quickly soon realize that maybe there's a different way of doing it. I could do it better. I could do it faster. You meet different-minded people. You meet the same-minded people in the process of you doing whatever. I met Steve Obogo, who's my best friend to date, right? And the reason why we no longer learn the company is because we both, which is a bad example. Please don't do it. If you do start something, stick with it. Don't be like us. Because we started a company that used to do activations. And Unilever was our client. And Unilever offered me a job. And I went and worked for Unilever. And ACCA was our client. And ACCA offered Steve a job. And Steve went and worked for ACCA. Steve now heads up ACCA. Until recently, he was the head of Tanzania and Kenya for ACCA. I look after Unilever for East Africa, right? I don't think that's a coincidence. And what's the point I'm making? What is the point I'm making?
When you start something, stick with it.
Thank you. When you start something, stick with it. Yeah? Does that make sense? Okay. There's a few other more technical issues that I want to talk about, and maybe this is where we end the conversation for now, which is the softer stuff of so once we get those basics out of the way, yeah, and to me really those are basics. Find something you're passionate about. Don't just be another student going through school so you can get yourself a job. Clear, right? Start something, whatever it is, just get started, right? And most of these things, almost all these things don't need money. So that fallacy of I need to go and get capital, I'm not asking you to go and start a business. I'm asking you to go and be passionate about something, right? I think the third point is this whole point about, I think if you go through the slides, I think I have, just go back. Yeah, I think just stick on this. The one thing I want to talk about in this chart is really the point about deliberate practice, which is, how many of you play a sport, any sport? What do you play? Say again? How long have you played basketball for? 3 years. Are you any good? Fantastic. How many times do you play basketball in a week? You play basketball every day. What time do you play basketball? What time do you play? What time do you practice? 6 a.m., right? So twice a day even. Wow. Please give it up for her. I think that's amazing, right? What's your name, ma'am? Elsie, right? So Elsie is a good example of somebody who has found something she's passionate about. From what she's passionate about, you're doing something about it, which is my third point you just made for me, is by deliberately practice. You can't start and then stop, right? Stick with it, to the point that you just made, stick with it. And you've now found something that you're passionate about. So how old are you, if you don't mind me asking? $22 years old, right? So you've played for 3 years, so you started when you're 19, right? In the next 7 years, you'll have 10 years of basketball experience. But you'll be 29. You'll still be a very young person with 10 years of experience, right? The number of people you'll have met in that process. So let me give you my basketball example. So I joined Unilever, by the way. Oh, let me give you a quick history of the last 8 years. I joined Unilever. I did Unilever for 1.5 years. I was a management trainee in marketing. After that, I then went to Rwanda. I was hired as a country director for Unilever in Rwanda. I was 24 or 23. I was just 24 years old. I did that for 3.5 years. And the reason why they gave me the job again is because, remember, I was already a business person way before I joined Unilever. So by the time I had come to work for Unilever, I sort of knew about processes and people and managing and, just, I knew how to run a business. So it was so much easier for them to give me the job and tell me, you know what, we see you can run a business, go run a Unilever business. And I did that for 3.5 years. While there, I discovered golf. Because I was a young man, they were paying me not bad money. I was sitting by myself with a lot of free time. So I started playing golf. And what started off as a joke those days has become a very big part of my life, right? So I'm a big golfer now. And the biggest advantage that golf has done is a number of business problems I have solved just because I'm on a golf course. I'll give you a simple example. So about 5 years, so those days when I was in Rwanda, I started playing golf. We had a big problem. We had a big contract with the government, with the Ministry of Defense then. They used to buy Unilever products from us. Then one day we get a letter and we are told, no more. Your contract is being cut today. We are not going to buy from, and the contract was over $100,000 a month. And all of a sudden now, they're not going to buy from us, right? And I remember remembering that the head of the ministry, there was a minister for finance that I used to play golf with. Rwanda is a very small country. I remember, playing around with him and explaining, Bana, sasa contract nini. He says, no, don't worry, come to my office on Monday, we'll deal with it. I go to his office on Monday, and he tells me, okay, fine, walk me through the process. What are the challenges? We write a letter to the president. The president gets that letter. He looks at it and says, okay, fine, it doesn't make sense for us to stop buying from you because we really don't have a manufacturing capability in the country. So if we stop buying, then our people are actually not going to get the products they need. Within 2 or 3 weeks later, we were back in, right? Do you know how difficult it would have been to get a Minister of Finance? If I walked in through the reception and said hello, and that's just a simple example. I can go on and on and on. I'm very passionate about it. I love playing it. It takes a lot of my time. It's a difficult. It requires commitment, but I have sat through it, and because of that, I can see a lot of benefits that are happening to my life because of it. Which is the same thing for you. Find something you're passionate about, and please do it, and stick with it. Does that make sense? Did I have a final point? I could go on and on, but my final point to all of you is, and I'll tell you something I learned yesterday. I played, yesterday was a holiday, right? So I played around somewhere, and the guys that I played with, so I showed up and I said, hello, my name is Kelvin, I'd like to play. And they told me, those 3 guys are around, just join them. So I joined them. I never knew them before. Total strangers. By the time we finished, we were best friends. There's a guy called Agre, who is a former CEO of Ipsos Innovate. He's like 2 years. So I played with him, and I played with a friend of him who's called Samson, who's a CFO of Nairobi Hospital. The reason I'm telling you these things is because and I played with a guy called Maurice as well. So these 3 people, guess what they have in common? They went to campus together. When? 2004. They cleared campus in 2004, right? Which is the relationships you're making today in campus are so important. My best friends today are the friends that I made in campus. And how do you make friends? You make friends with people that you are connected to. You don't just make friends to your classmates. You make friends with people when you find yourself in the same activity together. So you are in Christian Union together, you are in debate club together, you are in whatever it is that you're doing, you're in basketball together. Those are the best friendships that last. And so my final advice to you is find things and people that you're passionate with and doing stuff about. Make sense? Thank you very much. It's been amazing.